How many Americans believe the Earth rotated around the sun? And that percentage came out to be 75%.
And I guarantee you that the 25% who don't think the Earth revolves around the sun are the same people who don't want legal weed.
The green rush is real. From lawmakers and investment bankers to CEOs and investors, we'll look at how people are transforming cannabis from the shadows of the black market into a cash crop that draws in cannapreneurs from Hollywood to Wall Street. Here to help you navigate the business of cannabis, please welcome Louis Goldberg and Ann Donahoe. Brought to you by KCSA Strategic Communications.
Welcome to another episode of The Green Rush. One note before we start. If you can, please rate and subscribe. Well, whatever. Just keep rolling. Rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to it. It really helps. We want to get your feedback. And as always, make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter with the handle @GreenRushComms. That also really helps us out. So today, unlike all of the previous episodes that you've had the joy of listening to, we aren't actually interviewing anybody from the industry. It's an opportunity for us, me, Louis Goldberg, and Donahoe, to talk about what it's been like to do this podcast. It's a hostful episode, and we're going to take a little bit of a look back at the year in cannabis for 2017. So right by now, Ann and I have recorded just about a dozen different episodes, and hopefully we're getting better at it, and you're enjoying listening to us and listening to the guests that we've been talking to. And in a few minutes, we're going to be bringing in Phil Carlson, Managing Director on the Investor Relations team here at KCSA, and Nick Opich, who you've heard us mention on every single podcast, who is a Senior Account Executive on the PR team. Both of these guys are partners of ours and in mine in working on the cannabis accounts. Phil takes a look at it from the capital markets perspective. Nick talks to reporters and to influencers on a regular basis. And Nick is also an associate producer on the podcast. So we thought it was an opportunity for other voices other than Ann and mine to be participating in this. But before we bring them in, Ann, when we started this, you were relatively new to the industry. You were not somebody who is a cannabis head or a pot head. What's this experience been like for you?
Well, I'm only 6 months in at this point, so definitely better. But I think what's also interesting and what people might not know is that I actually live in LA. So we record this podcast, we're bi-coastal. And I think living in LA, just living in California in general, there's a different vibe and a different attitude towards cannabis. Everyone out there has a prescription card, yeah, and it's not a big deal. And so when I come out here, it's very different. You still have people talk about dealers and their suppliers, and it's still very black market out here, and it's just the stigma has completely been lifted from the West Coast. So I think what's also helped me, in addition to being in this industry from a PR standpoint, but living in a state where the risk and the
industry's been mostly de-risked in California.
Yeah, and it's more accepted in the culture. It's just not a thing anymore. And
you're not somebody who is historically somebody who would go out and roll a joint and sit back and have that with a glass of wine.
No.
I remember the very first time that you and I went to a dispensary, and your eyes kind of bugged out, like, holy shit, this is legal. And the first time that you tried an edible, I mean, it was a really eye-opening experience.
Well, you weren't with me the first time I tried an edible.
No, that's true.
Because I go to sleep when I do an edible. But I think what surprised me there was the many different vehicles, because in my brain it was just rolling a joint or watching someone take a bong hit. It wasn't, or even vaping. I had no idea what all of these other vehicles are, or the oils and stuff like that. So I think that's what I found really interesting too. I think being in the cannabis industry is becoming a little bit more accepted. My mother-in-law called me the other day. She saw something on LinkedIn. Actually, her brother saw something on LinkedIn and forwarded it to her. I was on a name of a press release or something, and I said, am I being tattled on? Is that what they're doing? And she said no. Her brother had sent it to her and said, I think it's really cool that she's in the industry, and I think it's an industry that's growing, and it's good that we have someone in on the ground floor here. And he's this accountant from Connecticut. So the fact that he thought it was cool, like,
Well, he also was probably thinking that you could get him a hookup because Connecticut's not a legal state yet.
And I have a lot of people asking me for hookups, and I'm like, you live in California. You don't really need... Phil sheepishly raises his hand.
So that's a good thing. So Phil, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself and not like a normal new business pitch, but just like talk a little bit about your experience in the cannabis industry.
So, Phil Carlson. I've been here for, I guess, 7 years, 8 years?
Yeah.
Going on 8 years. You and I got into this industry, about 5 years ago, I'd say?
Just about.
And it started with the PR side, but, we had some companies that we were working with on the IR side that, these guys were like smaller players in the space when we first got started. And it's really changed over the last 5 years. Well, it's changed significantly over the last 5 years from when we first started this. But, it's definitely... It's changing for the better. You're seeing a lot of guys that are coming into this space now that are... these are guys from Morgan Stanley, from Goldman Sachs, KKR, and they're all making...
Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, these guys are all, placing bets on where this industry, where it goes from here. And, we're seeing the tide change. Everything's changing. And
I mean, for me, looking at it over the last 12 to 18 months,
right.
It's hockey sticked in terms of consumers' acceptance of the plant, the investors' interest in the industry, the international changes that are taking place, and you're getting to see a lot of this on the ground floor, right? I mean, you're taking companies out to talk to investors, to conferences and trade shows.
Yeah,
I mean, what's your experience changed?
So, like when we first got into this, like I said, 5 years ago, we were calling guys up and introducing these cannabis companies, and people, they were hanging up, they weren't taking our calls. It was pretty much, it was definitely a challenge then. But now we have guys, I don't want to call it any firms because these guys are probably doing it in their high net worth accounts. But there are some well-known funds out there that are definitely making calls to us and asking, whether it's Kush or TerraTech or Iantis or whatever, they're calling up, and these guys are genuinely interested in this space, whether it's for their fund specifically or for themselves personally.
So Ann, Phil, and I are all, either in our late 30s or I'm in my late 40s, and we have a different experience with cannabis, both from a consumption and historic perspective, as well as a business perspective. Nick, you're in your 20s. When you tell people that you work on cannabis clients, what do they feed back to you?
Can I get a job? Mainly.
Not can I get a joint? Can I get a job?
No, yeah, they're extremely excited about it. Like when we were working around the MJ Biz conference in Vegas, and like telling them like, no, I've got to spend some time pitching and speaking with reporters around that. Like we're sending a couple of clients down to Vegas to go to this big conference around cannabis. They were just psyched and they wanted to get involved and wanted to know different things. I've gotten to meet different people that were friends of friends that are involved in different cannabis organizations that I would have never met. But so I'm only 25 compared to everybody else on this team. But I can say I've been a cannabis enthusiast for probably about 10 years.
So that's a good question, I think, is, we're all very conscious of using the word cannabis. We don't call it weed or pot or anything like that. But when we talk about it, it's more in a professional setting. But when you talk to your friends and your family, and this is for any of us, and you start using the word cannabis and you're not calling it weed or marijuana, what's the reaction that you guys get from your friends and family when you're really focused on that word?
Well, it's just to jump in, like everybody that I speak to at my age level is most likely saying marijuana or pot. And I try to make it, ever since we've really started accelerating our cannabis practice, is I try to use the word cannabis because I think it separates the way we talk about it. When you say cannabis, when you're speaking about it, it's like an adult use industry rather than recreational.
Correct.
Recreational makes it sound like, somebody's going to be out on the beach in California getting stoned in front of a bunch of kids, which that's not going to actually be the case. So I think it's important for, especially ish, but
which, by the way, I've been told by my partners I am no longer allowed to use. I can't say ish. There was a list on my whiteboard in my office.
Like the CDC?
Yeah, like the CDC. Yes, we are. Ish is now one of the words that Trump has banned.
But yeah, there's a conscious effort to try and we're on the ground floor of this. We're the ones that are one of the first PR companies really dedicating a practice to it. So it's important that we use the right language that is going to make our clients better.
Yeah, well, cannabis, that's the more professional term. When people are talking about marijuana and weed, you're going back to that old stoner culture, right? And when you have you have professional people getting into this space, you're trying to
legitimize it.
Yeah, legitimize everything here.
Yeah. And I think there's huge stigma when it comes to weed and pot, and that's how it's discussed among, definitely my circle of friends, but my default word for it is cannabis. And I think it's because I started late to the game, and we made such a conscious effort to speak in the right way. And we know more than anything that words words have meaning, but
an impact.
It is a real impact, and I think that when you talk about it in the grand scheme of cannabis, it's so much more than just weed and pot. So actually, that might be a good place for us to break. We'll be right back with our hostful episode.
More Green Rush coming up after we roll through our sponsors.
Ignite the conversation on some trending topics along the Cannabis Radio social media network. Join our crew of thousands on our Cannabis Radio page on Facebook or at Canna Radio, CANNA Radio on Twitter. Plus, look for our Facebook and Google Plus pages for all of our original programs and connect with Dr. Dina, Kyle Cushman, Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Nurse Heather, Doc Rob, the host of Ganjapreneur, and more. Connect with the growing Cannabis Radio social crusade at Canna Radio on Twitter or search for Cannabis Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Instagram and grow with us.
Are you disturbed by the prescription medication commercials on television and their endless list of side effects? They go on, and you end up having to take multiple pills to counteract the problems caused by the first pill. It never ends. Have you looked into CBD as a more natural option? At Saturn Ranch, we produce all-natural CBD topicals and THC-infused edibles. Premium lab-tested hemp-derived CBD is the most important ingredient in our products. From topical balms, salt scrubs, bath-soaking salts to tinctures and edibles, you're sure to find something to help. Family-owned and operated, we at Saturn Ranch believe in and use our products daily. Don't put anything on your body that you wouldn't put in your body. SaturnRanch.com.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
Banking and Bud, understanding the business of cannabis. Welcome back to The Green Rush, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back to The Green Rush. I'm Louis Goldberg. I'm joined by the hostess with the mostess, Ann Donahoe. And today,
let's not make that a thing.
That's definitely not going to be a thing. Trust me. I can guarantee you I will never say that again until the next episode.
Add it to the list of words.
Yeah, it's like Twinkies. And so we're here with Phil Carlson and Nick Opich, who together we are the core of the cannabis team here at KCSA. And this is not going to be a promo for us. This is really an opportunity for us to talk about what it's been like to really get involved in the industry, what we've seen looking back over the last year and what we look forward to. So, Ann, why don't you talk about about what you think the biggest story of the year has been in cannabis for 2017?
I definitely think it's been the Constellation investment in Canopy Growth, which is the Canadian medical marijuana behemoth. Constellation is the $42 billion company behind Corona and my personal favorite, Kim Crawford. Sauvignon Blanc.
Why did you mumble Sauvignon Blanc?
Sauvignon Blanc. But the talk has been that this is laying the groundwork for a potential cannabis-infused beverage. But I think it's so much more than that. I think it's two things. It's the liquor industry, the spirits industry hedging their bet because, as more and more states, at least in the U.S., and Canada is a different story, but there's been a marked change in the consumption of alcoholic beverages where cannabis is present or pot is present. And I think that, you can either get on board or you can just just sit and fight and watch your market share drop. And I think Constellation has decided to do the former.
And in our conversation a couple episodes ago, and we'll put it in the show notes and link back to that episode where we talked to Bruce Linton, the CEO of Canopy. He was talking about the research and development angle, how Constellation is looking to do infused drinks. And then when we talked with William Simpson, the CEO of Golden Leaf, he was talking about the stance that alcohol companies and pharmaceutical companies have taken against cannabis, mostly in Arizona and in Florida. And we're seeing with Constellation, the industry, the alcohol industry, recognizing that consumption rates are as high for cannabis in legal jurisdictions as they are for alcohol. I mean, there was a study that came out this week that showed that in Canada, people are consuming by gross sales the same amount of cannabis as they are now consuming alcohol. So, Constellation clearly recognizes this as a significant trend.
Well, on top of that, I don't know if you guys saw the Washington Post Facebook story this morning. It was regarding weed and alcohol.
And this morning is?
This morning is Wednesday, December 20th. They did a couple of posts on there, but a solid body of evidence has shown that if more people have access to weed, then alcohol sales are going to drop. So, like you said, these companies are recognizing that the usage is getting up there, and as people have more access, they're going to want those options.
And that's a good question for you is, how are you seeing, I mean, Nick, as you talk to reporters and you're looking at the data and helping our clients communicate, what are you seeing in terms of public perception? How are you seeing, or how is that being fed back to you?
So it's, like I said, I'm only 25 right now. I grew up in the going to DARE, as a kid in elementary school. That was our
Is
introduction.
McGruff the crime dog your best friend?
Oh my God, no. But that was the perception when I was a little kid not too long ago, that once you're on marijuana, you're gonna fall into a drug trap. Where now we're seeing, there was a Gallup poll back in October that 64% of Americans want legal weed, or they think it should be. And then on top of that,
legal what?
Legal cannabis. But I think even more to speak to the public opinion is a recent study showed that Republicans are actually expressing interest in legalizing weed, with 51% wanting to see it be accessible for adults.
Well, just going off that 64%, that was for adult use medical, right?
Yeah.
So there was a poll by Quinnipiac back in April that it was 94% of Americans supported some form of legal medical cannabis. And at the MJ Biz conference back in November, I was at the investor lunch with Chris Levy from MedBen was the keynote there, and he was trying to find something that he could compare that to, and the only thing he could compare it to was how many Americans believe the Earth rotated around the sun. And that percentage came out to be 75%.
And I guarantee you that the 25% who don't think the Earth revolves around the sun are the same people who don't want legal weed.
Well, I'm saying, so 74% wanted, or 74% believe that the Earth rotated around the sun, and then you have 94% that believe that there should be some form of legal medical marijuana.
Don't you think that has to do, though, with there's an aging population as people get older and aches and pains happen, and, they're finding that traditional drugs aren't, no one wants, I mean, the opioid crisis is, we should have a whole separate show about that, but, as more and more doctors are becoming familiar with prescribing, medical cannabis, there's a population of the audience of the United States that's older, that's white, that's in pain, and cannabis can be, not you, Lewis.
Yes, me. I have two, to be honest, I have two herniated discs in my neck, and they kill. And the only thing that actually helps with the pain is cannabis. I've taken muscle relaxants. I've taken non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. I will not take opioids because I'm afraid of getting addicted. When I'm in real pain, cannabis, THC, is the only thing that can actually make the day passable. So I am that person you're describing. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm also, like Nick, somebody who has historically been happy to roll a joint. But that was for pleasure. Now I actually use it for the medicinal side because it really helps.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think just to build off of that, when you're talking about it for access for people that are like in a situation of pain, one of the most common stories we've heard since we started the cannabis practice is how much it helps people with epilepsy really be able to handle their condition on a day-to-day basis. And when it comes to the other option is taking drugs or potentially getting addicted.
The drugs for especially for children's epilepsy tend to be heavy-duty barbiturates, and the use of CBD and THC or super high CBD and some THC for the entourage effect, it doesn't have the same impact. And when a kid's having a grand mal seizure, giving them a super high dose of THC can quell the seizure quickly. There's a grower in Colorado named Jason Cranford who has a new product called Canatrol, which is a nasal spray that is a super concentrated dose of THC. And I've seen videos of these kids who are, they could die from these things, and the parent will spray the THC in their nose and the seizure stops. So it's medicine. It's not just for getting high.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Let's shift a little bit and talk. I'm going to actually come back to something that Phil said a little bit earlier when he was at the MJ Biz conference. There were 18,000 people there this year, which is apparently it's 80% year-over-year growth. Yep. A lot of the institutions are still on the sidelines. You're talking to investors and you're talking to high net worth and family office managers, and they're investing their own private money into this. What are you hearing from them? Why are they saying I'm not ready for my fund to be involved, but I don't want to sit on the sidelines personally because I feel like I'm missing the boat?
It all comes down to the federal legalities here, and that's why these guys are not putting their funds. Not getting the funds involved, but they're doing it from the high net worth standpoint. They're doing it on their own. And a lot of these high net worth guys are looking at this as more of a vanity investment these days. They're not.
They can say, I got pot stock.
Instead of them putting money, into a Broadway show or into a sports team, they're saying, hey, I own a marijuana cannabis company.
It's hard to break yourself of that.
It is.
Nick, you said you went to DARE.
Yeah.
We grew up in the Just Say No, or at least I did, in the Just Say No era with Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan. It's going to take a long time to change the perceptions of people about the plant itself. And so, when you're talking, Phil, to investors, are they just wanting to take these meetings for the fun of it, or are they actually seeing the business side of these companies?
And are they seeing return on their investment yet?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that will come. But a lot of these guys are, because, these stocks are rallying, as you can see with what's been going on up in Canada. But yeah, these guys are taking these meetings because they're interested in the space, and they see the opportunity that's coming here in this space. There is a significant opportunity it's basically plowed through over the last 5 years. But you have companies that are being pretty much backdoored into this as well. Like with the Constellation investment into Canopy, you have Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Fidelity, and JP Morgan are all in the top 10 holders of
I
Constellation.
didn't even think about that side of it. Yeah.
Wow.
And so now these guys are by default
pot stock owners.
So that's a real. So given that they are not allowed to invest in federally illegal ventures, does this mean that they're going to have to divest of Constellation, or is because it's a secondary or tertiary investment that they can stay in?
I'm sure that Constellation had spoken with these funds and said, hey, we're going to make you this investment. I don't think they would just go and try to piss off their 5 of their largest top 10 holders, or 5 that are in the top 10. But it's certainly an interesting time right now.
So I think that for me, the interesting thing about all of this is leading to the consumer experience. Constellation as one of the largest alcohol either manufacturers or importers, it's all about giving a consumer a good experience. And right now, the thing that I have found most fascinating is over the past year, we have traveled to Canada, to Washington State, to Oregon, California, Nevada, and Colorado, and we've been able to go to dispensaries in all of these different locations where it's legal now. And the retail experience is fundamentally different in each state. And I have been fascinated to see the different experience. We're all used to going shopping. You go clothes shopping, and you go into the Gap, or you go into Banana Republic, or you go into Uniqlo, and it's the same experience no matter where you're going to clothes shopping. You're going into a wine store, though, and it's very different. There are high-end wine stores, and then there are like liquor stores that are kind of like bodegas. And cannabis is much more like that differentiated wine experience. Some of them are really high-end and have great people who understand the difference in the strains, the difference in the delivery methods.
The bud tender.
The bud tender, which I hate that name. I hate that name.
What would you change it to?
How about a retail associate?
Okay.
Nobody wants to tell their friends they're a retail associate at a dispensary.
But
you want to be a bud tender. That's
No, you don't.
expertise. You
No,
know
well,
about the plant.
But it's the same thing as being a barista at Starbucks, right?
I think it's closer to being a sommelier at a restaurant. You know the different products that are there. You're able to give recommendations based off what the customer wants.
With Nick on this.
And I just love it when people disagree with me.
Well, I live my life in disagreement, so that's fine. But I think that that the retail experience is changing, and that when you look at companies like Golden Leaf or Forefront, which are doing multi-state operations and trying, or TerraTech, who are trying to do multi-state retail operations and make a consistent experience, whatever that experience is, that's only to the benefit of the industry. So I think we'll take a quick break here and get back into something that I wish we had something to pass around, but we'll do Puff Puff Pass when we come back.
More Green Rush coming up after we roll through our sponsors.
Introducing 420 Cloud, ignited by MSIG, one of the fastest growing social apps around. The only app you'll need for all things cannabis. Find the latest cannabis news, videos, and stories, ranging from business and tech to sports and medicine. Start your career in cannabis by seeking, identifying, and applying for jobs through our expansive listings. For businesses, 420cloud.com features a full-scale cross-channel network, monetizing high traffic for big data conversion and analytics. Download 420 Cloud now from the iTunes Store or Google Play. MSIG.com is a publicly listed company on the OTC, symbol MCIG.
Cannabis concentrates have been around for hundreds of centuries. In 19th century America, extracts mixed with other herbs were sold as a miracle cure. Now, Apex Supercritical has elevated the science of extraction into the 21st century. Apex Supercritical is the leader in CO2 extraction, which is the cleanest, safest, and purest way to extract plant oils. ROI in as little as 3 weeks. Our cost-effective systems are fully automated with an industry-leading 3-year warranty. And if we don't have your system in stock, we can build one in as little as 4 weeks, bringing CO2 extraction to the masses. Learn more at apexsupercritical.com. 4-week build excludes high production systems.
Introducing Blue Moon CBD, straight from the bluegrass of Kentucky. With our special nano emulsion process, you'll not only get the best CBD available, you'll get more of it. Not all CBD is the same. It's your body. It's your choice. Get relief from inflammation, anxiety, and stress. Go to www.bluemoonhemp.com and use code HEMP420 for a 20% discount on your order. Balance your body. Balance your life. Make it Blue Moon CBD.
Banking and Buds, understanding the business of cannabis. Welcome back to The Green Rush, only on CannabisRadio.com.
And we're back. We're talking with Phil Carlson and Nick Opich from KCSA. They are on the Team Cannabis. I don't know, what do we call it? We should have a mascot. What should our mascot be?
The leaf?
Yeah, that little. I actually have a little plush leaf that I gave to my 11-year-old son, who absolutely adores.
Okay. Well,
Parent of the Year, everybody. Parent of the Year.
We're going to steal it from Lewis's 11-year-old. So now we're going to do a segment that we do each week, which, Phil, I'm sure you know since you listen to every episode.
Yes.
It's called Puff Puff Pass, and we talk about 2 things that we actually ask our guests, talk about 2 things you love about the industry and 1 thing you hate about the industry. And I think let's take this for whatever it is. So you can look in the future, what you really hope for the industry, what you hated about this past year. Let's just leave it open for interpretation. So go, Phil, go.
Go, Phil.
Yeah.
2 things I'm looking forward to. Well, 1, New Jersey. See what happens there.
And by the way, Phil and I both live in New Jersey.
And I'm from New Jersey.
So,
and Nick has looked at New Jersey.
Yeah, I can see it from my house.
Just like Sarah Palin can see Russia.
Exactly the same thing.
So, in another thing though, California, I'm really looking forward to the state coming online. When you look at just the size of what's going to transpire there, just like compare Ocean County, for example. There are a little over 3 million people that live in Orange County. Compare that to the state of Colorado that has 5 million people. The state of Colorado has 200 plus dispensary licenses out there. Orange County has 20.
Wow.
So you're going to see, just when this state comes online here, in a couple weeks, it's going to be.
The state of Colorado generated about $200+ million in tax revenue from the sale of cannabis.
It was $300 million for the first 9 months of 20.
Is that high?
Yeah.
2017?
2017.
So they're projecting over $1 billion for the state of California.
Yes.
And the one thing
the revenues you're looking at for California in the next couple of years, you're talking potentially $6 billion
just in the state alone.
Just in this triples the size of the market.
So what are you concerned about, or what do you dislike about the industry?
The traveling to all the conferences. I'd like to see my family every now and then. No, but what do I dislike about the industry? I think that there's a lot of narrow-minded people out there that don't, why is it still a Schedule I drug? And this makes no sense. You can see the medicinal purposes for cannabis, and I just, is the government keeping it Schedule I so they can still reap the 280 tax benefits? Is that, why is the government keeping it Schedule I? I have no idea. But that's one of the things that I just can't stand about this.
So you actually did puff pass, but that's okay. We'll give you a pass. Nick.
Well, the first thing I'll say that I really like is the growing accessibility to different products. Where in the past it's you get your rolling papers, you get your weed, or you get like a quick pipe, and you smoke that wherever you can. Where now you have the accessibility to get different oils, different cool different vapes that like give you different experiences. You understand more of the different strains of the plants. So we're up to 26 states now that are legal, so just having the accessibility to actually go out and buy the things that you want to buy in the industry is nice to see. The second thing that I like is the growing number of media members that I actually get to work with on a day-to-day basis that actually cover the marijuana industry and are knowledgeable about it. Too often I've spoken with like business reporters at publications that just have no idea about the lingo of the industry or what these companies are doing for like actual marketing purposes. I spoke with the reporter who said, I've only ever seen like advertisements that are geared towards millennials or Gen Xers, when I'm speaking with these companies and it's like, no, they're trying to inform everybody. It's like there's so much out there for everyone to get involved in this industry and get what they need. So seeing that reporters are starting to get dedicated to this beat is nice to see.
And your pass?
I think it's still very confusing in terms of what the laws are, and there's targeted enforcement towards minorities still, specifically because of that confusion. Like recently there was an NCAA athlete that was found with less than a quarter amount of weed that he smoked after a college football game and got booked. It's like, well, 26 states in the United States are legal where you can actually carry this around and not have any problems, but there's still targeted enforcement against minorities. So with all the legal confusion and with different states coming on with different rules, I'd like to see that change.
So, Ann, what about you? I mean, as somebody who is not a 10-year head or new to the, is relatively new to the industry, what are the two things you really like?
I really like that I learn something every day. I'm still so new to it, but it's hard to keep up with all of the news that's happening. And to Nick's point, it's confusing that, when I'm talking to reporters, I have to remember, I'm talking about the state of California, whose regulations are very different from the state of Washington, from the state of Oregon, from the state of Colorado. So I think that's, I think it can be a lot more streamlined and a lot more efficient. And I think that my second puff is that I've never heard it put that way, is that this is an industry that can only go up. We're scratching the surface, and I think that it can only get higher.
That's the hostess with the mostest.
There you go. And I think what I hate about it is the current administration and they have such power to to be a force for good in this field, and they are doing nothing but roadblocking. And I think, they're
obfuscating. They're making it harder.
They're making it harder, and I think a lot of people are betting their lives and their fortune and their careers on this industry. And to live in such a world of limbo is excruciating, I'm sure. I mean, not just for us, but for the people who are growing, who are creating this product and selling this product and investing in this product. It's just, why can't we just have an industry where there's rules and regulations? I'm definitely for that. Yeah. But to live in this gray area is just excruciating, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. And Lewis, what's your puff pass?
So I think the first thing that really excites me about the industry is it's professionalizing. Very quickly, we are seeing that the industry is moving out of its black market past and into this green market, where you've got professional bankers and people who are accountants and real marketers, communicators like us, who are getting involved, and it's helping destigmatize the industry very quickly. The other thing I really love about the industry is that I am able to have in-depth conversations with my kids about the cannabis industry in ways that are not shaming. We're not pot shaming anymore. We're able to have conversations about what the real medical value of the plant is, what the business opportunity is. And I think that's really important because it's changing the nature and the attitudes of people who are slightly younger than you, Nick, and they are not going through the DARE programs. They are having conversations with people like us about what this is, and there's not this negative stigma. For me, the biggest challenge, the thing that bums me out the most about the industry is I came to this through the medical side of it, from learning about the impact on children's epilepsy and adult epilepsy, and that because the federal prohibition is still in place, there's not real medical research being done. So we actually don't know what the proper doses are. We don't know what the proper formulations of THC versus CBD to treat different things are. And I think it's really incumbent on the federal government to allow for real medical research to be done in the industry so that we're not guessing, and that people can actually get the medicine of the medicine in the way that will be most valuable to them.
Great. So I think that's a show. So thank you guys. Thanks to Phil and to Nick for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to chat with us, you can find us on Instagram. Oh, and to Catherine Green.
Yes.
Yay. Who is recording this for Instagram.
Catherine's our social media person, and we've not mentioned her before, but now we have.
And her last name really is Green. So we are on Instagram and Twitter with the handle @GreenRushComms, as well as at kcsa-cannabis.com, or feel free to drop us an email at greenrush@kcsa.com.
And happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa. Thank you. And Happy New Year.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited.